What's going on, guys? It's CJ and I'm back, and welcome to the Exodus Call of the Gods breakdown. So this is just going to be me putting my opinion in, and then next week I'm hoping to have Package on. Package is the main man over there at Exodus. He's going to come in, give his thoughts and sort of a breakdown for himself, and then we'll just get to chat and shit, figure out what we thought worked, what we thought didn't, how to improve, things we need to cut, add, whatever it may be. But this week I'm just going to talk my shit, and I'm going to be brutally honest with it, because fuck it, like, what do I care? So the first thing that I want to talk about, let's get into day one. So day one I pretty much rocked up and it was kind of raining a fair bit, so I chucked all my stuff up as quick as possible, got a basic camp layout, and then I just had to cover most of it with a tarp, which kind of sucked. So if next time you guys can make it not rain, that'd be a big bonus and we'll be cool with that. But obviously it's not their fault. So yeah, I put out all my stuff and I was ready to go. But I was by myself. I didn't have any of my regulars. I didn't have anyone to hang out with. So I sort of floated around a little bit, just sort of seeing what was going on. And my goal was to be a part of as many things as I could possibly be a part of. And then that way, when I come home and I'm doing this sort of thing, I can talk about more different subjects. Talk about more shit, right? So we got there the first day, and like day one was kind of a drag for me. Didn't really do too much. I just sort of hung out. But I did meet up with some good people there, and I'll get into that. I think day two is the main point that all happened. So day two rocks up and it's the opening ceremony. So pretty much it was just like a welcoming to the land, an introduction to the Undying, the Bountiful, the Wise, the Blood Priestess, all that sort of stuff. I don't really pay attention to that because that's the actual game and I suck at that. I'm better at causing chaos, and I'll get into that. But they went through their little spiel, and I think they could have probably prepared little speeches for that, like memorized some speeches, because I feel like some of it was a little bit like that. So if you have it prepared, it would have come out smoother, but they did a good job spitting their little spiels. And then it was like all the warband leaders come forward and do a talent, and a few people came up, and obviously they did basically nothing because no one was prepared for this. This wasn't a when you come in, have a talent prepared because we're going to call you up. So everyone just sort of did their own little thing. Some people just told a little story. Some people sang. Some people sang for far too long. I spun my foot around and people just thought that looked creepy, but I wasn't up there long, which I thought was perfect. There were people that were up there for quite a while, and I think that just dragged on unless you're into that sort of thing. So they did their little spiel, we did our little talent, and then it was pretty much game on. Now, I didn't have anyone I was hanging out with at this point. I didn't have any of my goats, I didn't have any of the other bulls. I didn't have any warbands that I click with. I had to make friends. So I was walking around and I came across I'm going to say their name wrong because I never actually tried to say it right, but the Robinoki, but I was calling them the Rubberneckers. The Rubberneckers were running the hill and tilt, and Mary Ann was someone that I've camped with before. Absolute legend. I love hanging out with Mary Ann. I sort of see her as like the mum type figure. Whether she likes it or not, but we were sort of just hanging out, and Finn was there playing the sheriff of the town. You could have robbed anything, Finn wouldn't have noticed. So, which actually happened. I did rob a few people and Finn didn't notice. But it was the first time in years. Like, I've spoken to Finn before. I've never actually been like close to Finn and had like a real relationship. We've had a few discussions here and there, but this is the first time we ever actually just sat down and chopped it up. And damn, that's a bad motherfucker. I love hanging out with Finn. It was really good to sort of interact with people that I don't usually interact with, because I was forced to, because I didn't have anyone else. So me and Finn had an awesome time, and it got real messy because I was trying to get Finn to have a couple drinks, but obviously being town sheriff, on the clock. He had to sort of wait until the 6 o'clock bell or 6:30 bell or the 7 o'clock bell, because it just seemed like every time it was about that time to start drinking, the bell didn't go off, so we had to wait. But we were sitting there and we were just hanging out, and I was getting more and more drunk because I'm drinking out of a 1.25 litre horn at this point, so I'm there to do some damage. So I brought a slab of cider, and this day I drank 18, I think, bottles of cider. But Finn was sitting there waiting, and then finally we were allowed to drink. We ended up in the tavern, and the tavern was just boring. And that's one of my biggest complaints about this event. The tavern had nothing going on. And that is something that I think severely hurts an event. Like, they ran the tavern well, they were nice people, they had a good look, but they just weren't hosting events. And I think that's something that every tavern needs to do. Every night there needs to be something going on. And that's what we were doing. So there was nothing going on in the tavern, and then we started playing coppers, or it's quarters basically for any American listeners, where you bounce the coin, it goes in the cup, the other person drinks. But we were playing in hardcore mode, where pretty much every time the coin went off the table, you drink. Now Finn was at this point half a slab behind me, so I was in bad shape from the get-go. But Finn took care of me, you know, helped me ruin my body for the next day, but absolute fucking hilarious time. I've invited Finn onto the podcast, so Finn will be on a future episode, which I can't wait for, because we got plenty to talk about, and Finn's got some insight that I don't have, and I also feel like sort of as an outsider on part of the community within the community, so it'll be interesting. I definitely want to have that chat. But then pretty much, yeah, I body bagged myself that night, and I was in bed. The next day I was an absolute fucking mess. I just couldn't move, I couldn't eat, I cooked spaghetti, just gave it away, I couldn't do anything. And then I ended up going into town, and the Naughty Boys and Arthur were running a tournament. And it was a free entry tournament. What a deal! Ooh, you've got to hire your weapons though. So it's not so free when you think about it, unless you want to go in there and just throw hands. And I only had Althean copper from Swordcraft, so no one was accepting that as a currency because they're trying to get their own economy pumping. So I didn't have any money. So I just went up to Arthur and I said, look, I've got a shitload of this fucking coin and it's worth nothing here. If I just give you a handful of this, can I join the tournament? And he's like, all right, fine, yep, you can join in. And I gave him like 6 or 7 pieces of Althean copper from Swordcraft, and then they put me in the tournament, but I couldn't hire a weapon. They just gave me a dagger, and I was fighting one of the Nords, and she had like a big long sword. So I was pretty much in the shit. Like, there was no way I could really win that fight without body rushing, and that kind of sucked. But it was good fun. Here's some footage of that as I talk about it, but that's pretty much what I got up to there. Then once I lost that, then there was another tournament later in the day where it was like a mind game. It was like sort of Connect 4, but with a bit of a twist. And I was overthinking it, and I was trying to set the other dude up to fail, and it screwed me over. But that was fun. So at this point, I'm sort of just moping around, just trying to figure out what to do. My boots were soaking wet because I brought 2 pairs of boots. One in-character pair of boots, and then one that's not immersive, but they're thermal boots, waterproof. But I only brought the left one. I didn't bring the right one. So I had to figure out a way to dry my boots or have my brother bring them up. And it was only Wednesday at this point, and my brother was coming up on the Friday. So I ended up using my potbelly stove, and I put the boots on top of the chimney, and they were there to sort of get smoked, and they dried that way. And it was really fucking effective. And then when I put them on afterwards, they were warm. It was so good. But those boots were falling apart, like the front on one of them flaps and then the back on the other one flaps. So I put nails in, I'm tying them on, just trying to keep them alive. But I think that's one of the next things that I need to invest in is boots, because my boots are just fucked up. But that's kind of one thing that I did. I didn't have a fire going because it was raining and I didn't want to sit in the rain. So I ended up eating peanuts for dinner and lunch. And then in the morning it was spitting a little bit, but I woke up and I had some sausages and stuff like that. But day 3, I was walking around and I realized that no one wanted my Althea copper, so I was just trying to throw it at people. Like, you want this for this? I was trading anything I could possibly get for it. And these 2 shady cats come up to me and they're like, hey, we heard that you're looking to make some coin. We might have a business opportunity if you're interested. Come see us over there at the Naughty Corner. Now, the Naughty Corner are some hoodlums. They're the local gang. So they go by the name the Naughty Boys. And at that point, it was made up of just 3 guys. Now, they were mad shady. But Reich was the one that I was talking to, aka James. And, he come up to me and he said, look, there's a certain leather worker in town and he's got a little treasure chest with some silver in it. If you were to lift that silver for us and bring it back here, we'd be interested in your services and might have some more jobs for you and we'll give you a cut. I'm like, cool. So I'm hungover still at this point, I think, but I'm slowly coming out of it. So I'm like, all right, well, something's happening. I'm just going to deal with this. So I'm hanging out, and on the down low, I'm hanging out with the sheriff, Finn, and I'm also bouncing back between the sheriff and hanging out with the Naughty Boys. So I'm like on both sides of the law right now. But then the leather worker disappears from his tent for a short while, and I went over and I just pretended I was looking at his wares, opened up his treasure chest, and out came the silver. Walked over to the Naughty Boys and handed it over. Earned myself my first 2 pieces of exo copper. So the Naughty Boys are like, okay, yeah, alright, we can work with you. So we got another job coming up, and there's some people trying to move some artifacts from point A to point B. We're going to be at point B and we're going to jump them and take the artifacts. So if you roll with us, maybe it's later on tonight you get to meet the boss. Now that intrigued me. I don't know who the boss is. I thought James was the boss. But apparently not. They're taking orders from someone in the shadows. So I'm like, I'm okay. I'm interested. Let's do this. So I said, I'll go get my shield just in case anything happens and there's a biff. I can handle my business. So I walk back to camp, grab my shield, and then on the way back I get stopped by someone that I made friends with. And sorry, I didn't catch your name actually, because you probably told me the first night, but I was so drunk I was just yelling at you. But this dude's awesome. I love this dude. I call him the guy because he had a potion or something that made it so he couldn't talk. So he comes up to me and he's like, hey, we're moving some artifacts. Would you be interested in helping defend these artifacts? And I'm like, okay, hang on. This could be the crew that I'm meant to be jumping at point B. So I'm like, alright, I gotta do something. Give me 5 minutes, I'll come back. So I report back to the Naughty Boys, because I'm more chaos than I am good. So I go back to the Naughty Boys and I'm like, listen, who are we jumping? Because I just got hired by the Rangers to defend them as they moved an artifact. And they're like, that's who we're jumping. I'm like, okay. So now I'm the man on the inside. So I walk all the way back to the Rangers and I'm like, all right, let's get moving. So we're walking and I know the Naughty Boys are going to be behind us now. They're not going to beat us to point B. So I'm deliberately walking slow, and they offered me 3 copper to move faster, and I moved a little faster, but I was just trying to delay that group enough so the Naughty Boys could get into position at point B. So after, it felt like an entire Lord of the Rings trilogy worthy of walking. We finally made it to point B, and they had scouts in the bushes. So one of the scouts just basically stepped on the naughty boys. So they jumped up, rifles loaded, aimed straight at him, and they've got him held hostage. Now at this point, I'm with the good guys, so I walk in and I'm like, what's going on? What's going on? I'm playing dumb. And there was an elf ranger standing near one of the naughty boys, but he was like slowly edging his way back so he could get away from the naughty boys. And this is my perfect time to step up, so I grabbed the knife that I had found, which actually belongs to one of the rangers. So I held a ranger hostage with a ranger's weapon. But I held the knife to his neck and I'm like, oh, you're not going anywhere. At this point, they realize that I'm betraying them. And the naughty boys are arguing amongst them and the rangers. And we just basically said, if you put the money down, we'll grab the money. We'll walk away. You can do what you got to do. But I think how it played out is while they put the money down, the naughty boys approached it and then they got attacked. So I got into a little scuffle, but then some of my friends started circling around me. So the scorpion... some of the rubberneckers, you know, there was people that I didn't want to fight and they were crushing in on me. So I'm like trying to play it smart, don't want to fight people that I like, because I do want to keep some of those alliances. And even though I'm betraying them, they didn't kill me. It made no sense to me. But then some of the Grim came down and the Eldar came down, I think, I don't know. But I just attacked them with them and then I just slowly edged away. And we escaped. So we escaped that, and we head back into town. And the naughty boys are sort of healed up. They're back in the camp, and no one for the life of us can figure out why they didn't kill me. And I don't think there was a strategic thing to it. I think that's another criticism that I have for some of the community at EXO. Is they seem to be very, very friendly. Like, there is absolutely no reason that they shouldn't have just taken my head off and left me there to bleed out and die. But they healed me. And that's not the first time this has happened. Like, every time I get into a fight, either the enemy will heal me or the people that I literally just betrayed will heal me and let me go. It makes no sense. Stop doing that. Kill me. I am there to die. But either way, I healed up and I went back to town. So we sort of just chilled for the rest of the night. I got to know the naughty boys a little bit more. We started making some plans, making some schemes, you know, just coming up with our next little hit. Then they started selling wanted posters, 2 copper, get a picture of yourself drawn up, and we'll assassinate that person. So if I wanted someone specific dead, I'd put 2 copper in the hands of the naughty boys. They'd draw up a poster. Later that night, that person gets whacked. Cool. Easy. Done. Now the next person that came up to the naughty boys looking for our services was Nana. Absolute G. But she come up and she said, look, I'm looking to send the leader of the Grim to death. Can you help me out? We're like, okay. We'll take some copper, and she said I'll give you 3 copper and some jam, and I'm like, okay, we can work with that. We like jam. Now then later on in the day, I see the leader of the Grim standing near death, and he'd just been revived. So he's walking back to his camp. He's weak at this point. So I said to James, I said, this guy's weak. She wants to come and send him to death. If we go tell her that we've got him at death and he's going back to his camp weak, she can come in and capitalize and kill him again and send his ass back to death. And then we get the credit for it. We did nothing and we get the payment. So we thought that was a nice little scheme, a little sneaky way to make some coins. So we ran over to the Nords, told Nana, hey, look, Grim over here's walking back to camp injured. You want to go finish it? So she ran out there and she told him basically, go back to death or I'll send you back to death. Talking about something about he wasted her arthritis medication, all sorts of weirdness. So that was funny. So they sent Grim and his homie back to death, and we got paid. So that's more money in the hands of the naughty boys. So at this point we're starting to amass a little bit of a fortune. So because they ran the tournament, I robbed the leathersmith, supposedly, and then, or did I already admit it? I think I've admitted it. Oh well. So they ran the tournament, made a bit of coin out of that. Then we robbed the leather worker, made some coin out of that. And then we scammed Nana, basically. Made some coin out of it. So we're making money hand over fist on some Soprano shit. And then later on that night, there was not much going on. That brings me back to make sure events are held in the tavern if they don't need to be held at your camp. That's my biggest tip to any LARP, because the tavern is what will make your event. But anyway, I end up going to bed that night, and the storyline or the timeline that I'm giving you is probably all fucked up. All fucked up. I got a terrible memory. But the next day, let's say this is the day that my friend T-Bone rocks up. Now, Vlog is one of my favorite LARPers ever. He's great in character. He's great in a fight. He's great at coming up with stories. He's a massive help when it comes to building my camps. So I love me some Vlog. And he rocks up, and I introduced him to the Naughty Boys, and we got him working pretty quickly. Now, there was something going on. There was a big biff going on, and while everyone was out of town, the Naughty Boys barricaded the entrances to town and claimed that it was due to safety hazards. So we were resurfacing the roads. You weren't allowed to come into town unless you had a permit, which cost 2 copper. So we're trying to charge people to get back into town, and they're all just looking at us like we're crazy. Like, we got guns aimed at them, and they're trying to get back into town. We're like, no, you can't come in here unless you've got a permit. We tried recruiting people so they could try and earn copper doing this, but no one was playing ball. And that's something that really hurt that sort of section of the story. Like, there were so many great ways to play that. Like, they could have either joined us and started trying to charge other people to get into the town, and then the really noble types would have to fight us to get into town. And I think that would have been a really good way to play that. But instead what we got was just a bunch of people saying that we don't have any money, we can't pay that, we can't come into town, let's just walk away. Or people just argued with us for a while. There was no real role play to it. It got boring pretty quick. Like, people just weren't willing to play ball with the story of a local gang taking over town. That's such a good little story that they could have played out, but no one really leaned into it. There was even people that were 100% out of character, and they're just like, oh, you've taken town? We don't care. Bye. Like, okay, go home then. This is a role play. Don't jump in and just say some negative shit and walk away. Shut up. So we were sitting there in town. We got guns loaded, and then eventually there was enough people sort of protesting, and they just stormed us, killed us. I broke my phone doing that too. I think that's when I leaned on my phone the wrong way and it snapped. So I got a cracked screen now. But I took an arrow from the Bard. I think you go by the name the Bard. I call you Chunky Feet because you had those big hobbit feet on. But I got pinged in the shoulder with an arrow. Went down like a sack of shit. And they looted me. But I lost 2 copper. And then I found a silver on the ground. So that was a pretty good deal. But in the end, we sort of go to Dev. We're hanging out. We get healed. Actually, I got healed. Why'd you heal me? I just tried to take over town aggressively. Why'd you heal me? But they healed me, of course. But that was good for Vlog. He got to wake up, get his role play going, and yeah, he had some fun doing that. So we were hanging out, and then we started playing coppers, and we're playing as a gambling game. We started coming up with new rules to make it strictly for gambling. No longer a drinking game, just gambling. And we were doing that, and people were coming over. Shout outs to the Octagon. Bro, you're an absolute G. Coming up and actually playing the game, putting money down, paying your debts when you couldn't pay it on the spot. Like, absolute legend. keeping the economy going by spending money. That's what we needed. So a few people came over, but for the most part, people saw me just absolutely crushing it. Like, I was undefeated for most of the day. I think out of like, say, 20 games, I lost 3 or 4. Like, I was an absolute savage. But in the end, we were playing that game a fair bit, and then my brother Nick rocked up finally. We ended up putting up his tent. We have some food, hang out a little bit, go to bed. Wasn't much going on. Saturday rolls around, and the naughty boys come up with the idea that we're going to barricade the altars that the champions need to put their hands on at the ring of each bell. So we're over there at one of them. We barricaded it, and we put walls up, and you know, we're there to defend it so no one can take it. And then I piss off to town, but we head back down. Me and Vlog walk in, and all the walls are taken down, and they deemed it as a safety issue. But if you hurt yourself on those sticks, you got to be something special. So we rock back up. All the sticks and barricades are removed except for like the big, obvious, bulky ones. And the battle's about to start. So I got a little bit of footage of it. Not a lot, but I got bits and pieces here and there. And yeah, we just basically got pantsed. Like, there was no way to defend that thing properly. And there was people complaining because there was these weird spells where they just flap shit in your face and count. Ugliest friggin' spell. So cringy to watch people count. I really don't like that sort of rule where you have like loud counting. I don't know how they can do it that won't make me cringe, but that's why my characters always hate magic, is because 9 times out of 10 the magic that's done is pretty cringy. But yeah, we basically got steamrolled, and I don't even know how it ended because I'm not there for the main story for the most part, because I don't understand what's going on, and everyone seems to be sort of cliquey and they talk amongst themselves. So we just went back to camp and we ended up building this absolute savage gate. It looked so good. We're really happy with this. Just any stick that we could find, bang, straight into the wall. Absolutely loved it by the end. And it was good to see my camp just sort of evolving as I went along in the event. This was probably one of my favorite pieces, and it was T-Bone's idea. He found this big stick that was an arch, and he's like, we should make a wall out of this. And we did, and fucking hey, look how cool it is. Like, Jesus. But then there wasn't much going on for the rest of the day. We tried to get the economy going. That night was Night of the Muses, and everyone seemed to be planning to just pretty much cook up everything that they had left, like all the sausages, bacon and all that, just throw it all into one big last hurrah. And we did the same. So we went up there with steak stew. Get your steak stew here. And we were selling steak stew. Not selling, we were just giving that bitch away. And it was nice as shit. So nice. But we didn't see many people come over and grab it. And it might have been because we were in the corner, but we wanted it next to the gambling, so you could gamble and have a bowl of stew at the same time, but it just didn't play out because everyone was scared of us. So they're doing Night of the Muses. We're trying to gamble, but our gambling game is so noisy, like throwing coins at the board. It's noisy as shit. So we couldn't do it while they were performing because that'd be rude. Like, we're not dicks. So we waited till all the singing and everything was done. And we kept playing. We had a few people come over, and this is how the White Bulls were trying to stimulate the economy, right? If you sit down and paid 2 copper to play me, I gamble my 2 copper. If you beat me, you keep all 4 copper. Helps the economy. If you lose, I give you a copper and say, go and find someone else to sit down and keep playing and gamble their copper. So we did that. But then the problem that we came across is people were walking around and giving the copper that we just gave them to the next person and telling them to sit down, and then I would just win my copper back. So we started coming up with different ideas on how to give away money. Like we were just paying people to go and get us a drink, or like just any way that we could get the economy moving by giving away coins. We were trying it, but sadly by this point everyone thought we were some shady characters, so they just weren't interacting with us as much as we would have liked. But even when we're trying to give away money, no one wanted a part of it. No one was willing to give up their own copper. They were only willing to bet the copper that I had circulating. So really, me trying to save the economy, I'm just watching everyone give me my money back. And because I'm so good at the game, everyone started thinking it was rigged. But again, I'm telling you, it's not rigged. It really isn't rigged. We're not smart enough to rig it. But everyone just thought it was a scam. So we started getting bored of that because no one was willing to sit down because we were so good at the game. At this point, T-Bone actually tried to throw a game by just like not really trying to get the coin in the cup, but he still ended up winning. And the issue with trying to throw a game is if the other person is super bad at the game, then it would just go on forever. Like if I'm trying to lose and the other person is trying to win but just can't get a coin in the cup, we just end up sitting there for hours and it wouldn't work. So we end up walking all the way back to camp, and on the way back we're just sitting there, we're yelling out, "Cold stew! God, it feels weird having so much money in my pocket. I hope we don't get robbed." No one robbed us. 100%. If you robbed us, you would have made 3 silver, 9 copper. Like, you would have been rolling in it. So we were annoyed that we had money. We were trying to get rid of the money to get the economy stimulated again. Like 3 people all pulled together were willing to just give away coin here. So a girl runs up to us and she's like, "Oh, I was told to come over and figure out what you're yelling about." And we're like, "We're just trying to stimulate the economy. If you know anyone that wants to come to bull camp and gamble, we got big money rolling around if you want to walk away with a big purse." She's like, "Oh, I've got no money." So we just gave her a copper for running up to us. She was puffed out, like poor thing, running after a bunch of dickheads down the road. And we're like, "You have some copper, you keep it moving, tell your friends if they want to come down." And of course no one came down. But then it was pretty much, that's the end of the night. We cooked up some corn. I make Mexican street corn like a G. God, it's so nice. So we made some Mexican street corn. And yeah, then we ended up just going to bed, waking up in the morning, breaking the camp down and heading home. So that was pretty much the entire event for me in a breakdown. Now I'm going to get on to some of my criticisms, my pros, cons, all that sort of stuff. And I'll just smash it out. And feel free to leave comments, agree, disagree, request to be on the podcast, and you can tell me your side of things, but let's get to it. So let's start off with the pros. Now, other LARPs that I've been to, which is only one, so it's not really a surprise. Hello, Swordcraft. They don't really give you much of a story. The fun at Swordcraft is always player driven. If something is happening, the players put it on, not the organizers. I've never, or for the life of me, can't remember a single time where I'm like, okay, the organizers made this happen. It seems to always be player driven. Exodus doesn't do that. They have GMs that actually will drive the story, give you plots, give you things that you can do if nothing's happening, which is fucking awesome. Like, mwah, chef's kiss. They've got idols, ingredients, lootable things out there in the world that you can just stumble across, and puzzles that you have to complete to open up chests and things like that. Why the fuck every LARP doesn't have that? It doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't take a lot of effort. I think one of the biggest issues with other LARPs, and again, hey Swordcraft, what's going on, is the organizers are players, not GMs. So if there's something happening story-wise, it's because they're probably doing it for their own warband, but not for everyone else. So Exodus, top marks on that. absolutely had a ball with a lot of the things that you guys put on. Another thing that I did like about Exodus is they give you a lot of freedom. Like, I know Swordcraft at the moment, hello Swordcraft, has moved into the Warhammer world, and that kills a lot of my motivation to go to Swordcraft. I will be going because I want to try it again and see what they're actually on about, but for the most part, my creativity is key for me. So if I can't be in complete control of what my character's story is and how he interacts and everything, that hurts me. But Exodus gave me that freedom. They welcomed me with open arms and said, hey, if you want to go camp by yourself and build an immersive camp, go do that. We're all for it. So I got to do that, and that was a big bonus when it comes to Exodus. Thank you again for letting me do that. Some more of the positives are deliberate leaks. And I don't want to get into this too much, but I know that there is certain groups that were getting set information to drive conflict amongst different warbands and things like that, to make things sort of happen. So say I've got artifact A, they might tell warband B that warband A has artifact A, and if they bring their artifact, then there'll be a fight and you guys might leave with both. Like that I think is a big part of how LARP should run, is story-driven information being leaked out, and then that way there is a reason to leave your camp. Because I found a lot of people, I'll get into that in a minute actually, because that's one of the cons, right? Fuck it, let's get into the cons. Coming in, the issues that I have with Exodus or Exofest or Call of Gods, whatever you want to call it, right, is I feel a lot of the community are far too friendly, which sounds weird, right? But if you get betrayed by someone and you're willing to heal that person, they better have some information you want, or you should just let them die. Which brings me to the fact that people dropped characters so quickly. Like, I feel like day 1 and 2 was pretty good. There was a lot of character stuff going on. And then from that point on, it felt like only a select few stayed in character. Like, the amount of times I walked around and people walking down the road were talking about fucking computer games and fucking, oh, what are you doing at work on Monday? Blah, 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 blah. Like, the characters just disappeared day 3 onwards, and there was only a few like Nana, the Naughty Boys, the NPCs, and a few select players that were like constantly, I walk past and I'm like, okay, they're in character. And people just need to learn to roll with a situation. So there was one, and I'm going to talk to Package about this because I feel like he'll have some input on this as well, but there was one warband that was holding an event, and we noticed that they didn't have a lot of chairs for the amount of people they were hoping to get, because we intended on going to that event and taking part, but the problem is we wanted to be able to sit down. And we noticed there wasn't going to be enough seats, and it's rude to sort of just take someone's seat in their camp, because then that person might come back and be like, why are you sitting on my seat? So we set up with the Naughty Boys, in conjunction with Steve Beattie's reputable businesses, to rent chairs outside of the camp. So we went up and we sat down, we set up a bunch of chairs, and we were going to say 1 or 2 copper, rent a chair, go in, bring the chair back at the end. We weren't stopping anyone from going into the camp. We weren't stopping anyone from going into the party, bringing things into the party, or even bringing their own chairs to the party. We were just there to have a laugh, sell some chairs, and then we would have gone into the party and enjoyed it ourselves. And we would have just probably donated all the chairs that we brought to save us carrying them all the way back up that night. But while we did that, a certain member of a certain war band came out and said, "Get lost, I'll shank you." At this point, we thought this person was still in character, because obviously the word shank. And Two Fingers noticed that this person had an axe and said, "You can't really shank me with an axe." And he was in character, he was having a laugh. But basically this person then went on to say, "Fuck off." Out of character, full on just fuck off. "We're trying to have a party, fuck off." Now, to me, that's unacceptable. One, you're not in character. Two, we weren't doing anything out of character for us. And three, we weren't stopping you from doing anything in character. That was just a person coming out of a camp and just being rude for fucking no reason. Zero reason. You could have come out of character and said, "Hey, can you guys not do that? We want people to come in," and you guys sitting there for some reason stops them. I don't know. I can't even think of out of character why it would matter. But this person came out guns blazing and telling us to fuck off. Now, side note, since this happened, I have been told that I should have, instead of getting annoyed at the fucking person for screaming at me, I should have walked over and said, "What is wrong? Why are you upset at us? How can we help you not scream in our face?" That's fucking logical, isn't it? Steve Beatty is a young dude. He didn't want any drama. He's trying to run a reputable business. He moved along. Two Fingers said, "Okay, yep." As NPC, he had to move along and didn't want to cause any conflict. So to the person that did that, and I'm not going to out you and say, "Hey, the way you did things was wrong." I'm not going to say your name or nothing. Again, I'm not going to say any identifying details beyond what I've already said. But that was a big negative for me, is the fact that people were so willing to break character and not roll with the punches. Because that was one of the most annoying things about that entire event for me. Now, obviously that's not Exodus's fault. This is me talking to the community. If you're a part of the community, and this even goes for other LARPs. Hey Swordcraft, I didn't forget about you. There has been, in the 9 or so years that I've been LARPing, and that number's probably way off, too high, too much or too little, but I've always played the same types of characters. The ones that get bored and will cause chaos to entertain themselves, right? And every single time I do that in an event, I will walk away with an interaction that I'm like, why does that person even come? If they just want to have a happy, fun time, then play Skyrim modded where everyone is a cat. Because you're coming to an event where there are going to be bad people, good people, and straight up comedy people. Two Fingers, for the most part, is a character that I would usually hate. I don't like comedy characters, but he did it in such a good way where he made his character believable, even though everything he said was fucking hilarious. But people were finding it hard to respond to him in character. He would say something funny and then they would just sort of shut down and not know what to say. And that annoyed me to no end. The other negative that I seem to want to focus on for Exodus or ExoFest was the tavern. And this is what I'll end the negatives on. The tavern was run by a group of good people. They, as I said, had a good look. They weren't allowed to sell alcohol for whatever reason. I don't want to get into that. Your choice in music was real bad. For the most part, real bad. It just seemed like Game Boy music for a medieval game. And I offered to play my own music, and rightfully so, they didn't really trust me putting my my music on. But my music is medieval, 100% ambient tavern music. The other thing that I could suggest is going onto YouTube and typing in medieval tavern ambience D&D, and you'll find like 4-hour long videos of just plates clinking and people chatting in the background and beer pouring and just a little bit of a lively ambience to put in the background. That way when you walk into the tavern, even if there's 6 people there, it feels like there's 20. So I think the tavern needs to be a big focus for EXO in the next events. Overall, what are my thoughts on the entire event? Up and down. Kind of up and down. I really enjoyed hanging out with the naughty boys. I feel like the warbands were very clicky and didn't really interact with each other unless there was a biff or an objective. So it would have been nice to see multiple warbands in the tavern and causing trouble there, like arguing amongst themselves, you know, a bit of back and forth banter, as the kids say. That would have been interesting. The roleplay, I feel like, is hit and miss. Some people don't seem to have a character, they just talk like themselves. And I'm not saying everyone has to have a Scottish accent or bloody German accent or whatever it may be. You don't have to have that sort of stuff, but I have to be able to distinguish whether or not you're in or out of character. And that seems to be a big issue when it comes to LARPs these days. Is people don't develop a character, they just go in as themselves with some different clothes on. The tavern has to sell alcohol, so get that sorted by the next event, because that definitely, like, if anyone went to Cryle Castle Swordcraft Quest, you know that alcohol is a big driver for a tavern. So get that sorted out, you'll get bigger numbers. Focus on immersion within camps more, and this is me talking to the community, because the GMs and that can't force you to do this. And if they do, most people will either not come or they'll fail miserably. But start focusing on building your camp up to be immersive, and I call it the 50-50 rule. So if you've got a 50% immersive camp and a 50% unimmersive camp, split them. So have all your unimmersive shit behind your immersive tent and all your immersive shit in front of the immersive tent. And I saw Bull was doing it. He faced his tent away from the inside of his camp. So when he woke up in the morning and opened his tent, he didn't see people sitting on camp, like Kmart camp chairs and using a gas cooker and things like that. He woke up and saw trees. And I respect that. Respect that highly. But everyone had these blue marquees and fly screen marquees and blue tents, green tents, orange tents. Like, it's like the standard for your camps is just not there. Like, I'm not expecting everyone to do what I do, and I know what I do can come off arrogant and douchey, but I'm the best at it. I'll challenge anyone to make a camp better than the ones that I make. And I want you to beat me. I don't want to be the best at it. I want to see someone else do it better than me and inspire me to do more in my next camp. So up the level of immersion, up the tavern, and up a focus on role-playing. And I think Exodus will easily be the best LARP running around. Because I've seen clips from Hey Swordcraft, how you going? And it looked cringy. It did. It looked real cringy. I don't want to say what event it was, because I'm kind of a party pooper in that regard. Like, what a lot of people say is fun, haha, lovely, good time. I'm like, it's whack. I don't like that. I don't like that. I like realism. I like the gritty, feels like shit medieval world. Outside of my camp, if you can challenge me on immersion, please do, because I love that sort of stuff. That's why I go to LARP, is to make that immersive camp. Well, I guess I should probably wrap it up now. I don't know how long I've been talking for. I will be getting Package on in the next episode, hopefully. And then I'm going to try and get Finn or my brother on. I can interchange those. The next few episodes, hopefully you're going to have guests. I know I keep saying that, but, you know, life gets in the way. Shit hits the fan. You know how it is. But thanks for watching, guys. Like, subscribe, join my Patreon. Throw me a couple of copper unless you're a hoarding bastard. Thanks for listening. Catch you on the next one.